Let me introduce us. My name is Sir Stephen. I go by that name when I teach swords. My full name is Stephen Fick. We have Eric Fick in the gold. He's an instructor at the Davin European Martial Arts School with me. He teaches pugilism. Have any of you ever heard of pugilism? Have you ever heard of boxing? Pugilism is where boxing comes from. And then next to, in the green, we have Banshee. Banshee is Eric's fiancée. And then in the blue we have Erland. Erland is a student at our school. What we are going to do today is we're going to show you and tell you some information about what life was like in the 16th century for boys, men, and women. And then we are going to go in and show you a history of the sword, showing the evolution from the early swords to the late swords. Have you ever heard of the Three Musketeers? Who's heard of the Musketeers? How about Zorro? Yeah. Zorro and the Musketeers used a sword called the Rapier. We're going to go up through that. We're going to show you the swords. We're going to show you how they fought with the swords. Would you like to see some sword fights? Yeah. All right. We like the sword fight. So we're going to split you up so that you root, because we always fight better if we have somebody rooting for us. How many of you read your textbooks? Wow, look at the hands go down. We have textbooks as well for our sword fighting. We actually have our earliest textbook, which was written around 1298. It's a textbook that teaches us how to use a sword like this. This sword is called a single-handed sword, for obvious reasons, because you hold it in one hand. With the sword, or the manual that we have, this sword was taught to German monks. Now, why would monks need to know how to sword fight? Any guesses? Yes.
Like kill each other?
Well, not each other, but yes. Right, or they would go from monastery to monastery, because they would take their offerings and they just travel through the woods of Germany. And as you're traveling through the woods, you have highwaymen, you have robbers, you have thugs, you have bad guys looking to rob whoever came along. And they had no problem with robbing and murdering a monk. So the monk learned how to defend themselves. But you'll notice with this sword, it has only a simple cross piece above my hand. Now that's great for anything that's coming down, straight down the blade. That'll protect me. But what about anything that's coming at my fingers or at my wrist past the guard? You had to be very careful. So, as they were learning this, they would learn it with this. This is called a buckler. Looks like a little dinner plate, makes an absolutely fabulous frisbee when you're bored. But they would fight with sword and buckler. They would keep them together at all times. Because I don't have anything on the handle to protect my hand, and I don't have a metal gauntlet, a metal glove, I need to protect my hand with my buckler. So I will always keep my buckler and my sword together. So I will use my buckler to protect my hand. You notice how it always stays with my hand. The problem with taking your buckler away from your hand is that people were aware of that. So if we started here and he was the highwayman and I was the monk going on my way, and he came in, he could ignore my buckler and stop my sword from attacking him just by cutting my hand off. When you cut somebody's hand off, they lose the desire to remain in that fight anymore. So that works. I could do the same thing. I could take his hand. But because I have my buckler, I can use that defensively on my attack as well. So if he comes in, I can counter with my buckler and still strike him with my sword. Or if he thrusts, I can use my buckler to hold his sword and then stab him or cut him with my sword. So it goes together. Kind of scary. So we always keep these together. This is the way that they were fighting, that they were taught to fight in Germany in these monasteries in 1298. Do you know what else was happening in the 12th century? Or the 13th century, actually? Any of you heard of the Crusades? The Crusades. Crusades, what were the Crusades? Yes. Yes, what it was all of Europe, well, most of Europe, getting together to go over to the Holy Land, Jerusalem area, and kick the Turks out because they wanted to take it back. During this time, they were using this same kind of sword. The only difference, instead of using a little buckler like this, they would use a shield called a kite shield. Go from about your eyes down to about just below your knee. Kind of like fighting with a sword and a door. So you're well protected. You're very well protected, but that gets awfully hot, awfully hard to hold up and swing, especially when you're on 100+ degree in the middle of the desert. Now we have 3 ways that we can protect our hands. What do you think those might be? Yes? Metal gloves. Like these here. The metal gauntlets. These are called clamshells. They go over our fingers to completely protect our hand. Yes? The buckler. There's another one. What do you think that might be? Yes? Run away. If you're not there, you can't get hurt, so just run away. Yes? Yes, that comes in later, actually. We'll show you some of those swords as well. So this is the type of sword that they were using around the time of the Crusades. How about Robin Hood? Have you heard of Robin Hood? This is the type of sword that Robin Hood was using as well. We're now going to jump forward by about 200 years. We're going to go up to 1409. Does anybody know something that was happening in the 1400s over in Italy? Yes. Yes, 1492. Well, that's when he found it, so you know he left much earlier. Have you heard of Michelangelo? Michelangelo, not the Ninja Turtle, but Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel in the 1400s. And in the 1400s on the battlefield, they were using this kind of sword. You see how it's much longer than the other one? This kind of sword has a few different names. It's called a hand-and-a-half sword because it's not as long as a two-handed sword. Sometimes it's called a long sword. Sometimes it's called a bastard sword because it's longer than a single-handed sword but shorter than a two-handed sword. And the name that I prefer myself is it's sometimes called a great sword. Do you know why it's called a great sword? Because it's mine. That makes it great. So, what we're going to do, on the battlefield they were using this kind of sword, but they were generally in armor. So they were, how many of you have seen pictures of the knights? Completely encased in steel, right? So they can take hits. When you're wearing the armor, you don't mind the hits because it doesn't cause a problem. It was also used for dueling. So we're going to show you a couple different ways that it was used. First one we're going to show you is kind of a duel between myself and Erland. This was a kind of fight that would have been fought in shirts and gloves. So you have no armor to protect yourself, so you better move fast and be good at what you do. But we always fight better with cheering sides. So, what's your name? Jalan? Jalan, going this way? You're going to root for Erland. He's your guy. What's your name? Miles? Miles, this way. You're for me. So, so, make noise while we're fighting. Cheer for each of us.
This fight isn't about war. This is a personal fight.
You'll notice that we are in costume, we're in garb, we're dressed up like the period, but we're about to put on fencing masks. That's because what we are going to do is actually try to hit each other. So we need to wear protection. We have to be safe. So what that means is that when you leave here, and I know it's really cool to sword fight, don't go out, pick up a stick, and start beating up your friends with a stick.
If you want to do that, come to class and we'll tell you how to do it properly.
So, first is going to be a duel, shirts and gloves. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh, you all right? Oh, good. Where's one for me? One more. Okay. Watch this into the back of the head. You okay? Yeah, you got the. Good job.
Okay?
Yeah, you caught this.
Good.
So there's a duel. You'll notice we're moving around a lot. You have a question? That's a good question. His question was, can you grab a sword? The answer is yes, you can. What's important is how you grab the sword. And what I mean by that is if his sword is here and I grab on and he pulls and I move with him, I'm okay with that. If, on the other hand, he pulls and it slides through my hand, then it will cut. But if it does not slide through your hand, it won't cut you. And if you have a lot of people there, you better know how to move fast to fight multiple opponents. I hate this part. I have not won this part yet today. Oh.
You're too close to him. We don't want to kill the student.
Now it's just us two. Now we're back to a duel.
Hey, where are you going?
I killed him. Okay, something that you'll see. How many of you have seen Braveheart? What did they do in Braveheart? One group started over there, one group started over here, and they ran at each other, right? Yeah. Why did they do that? Yeah. Well, maybe to scare them, but to get there, because I'm ready to fight now. And I've got 1,000 people with me. So, we'll do a real slow run by. So, start over that way. So if, let's say there's 1,000 of us on each side. If we're running at each other, ready? I don't have to worry about it anymore now. Hey! All I have to do is let him get stuck in my people. Cheater.
Rule number 7.
So that's the long sword. The long sword was great on the battlefield. But what do you do if you're going to go to town and you need to go to the market? Can't carry this on your side because every time you do, you turn around, you're going to hit somebody with your sword. And every time you hit somebody with your sword, they're going to challenge you to a duel. And every time you challenge to a duel, you may get hit. And even if you are not, you're never going to get to the store. So you need to carry a sword more like this. This is called a side sword. Why do you think it's called a side sword? Yes? That's a good reason. Anybody else? Yes? Okay, that's a good reason. Yes? You wear it on your side. That's why it's called a side sword. So you have a side sword, and you have one of these. This was a very popular thing to fight with. What is this called? A shield. Yes? What's another name? A buckler. Remember from the beginning? It's also called a buckler. And then, yes, there is this thing right here on the side, or on the front of it. Who can tell me what they think this is for? Yes? To hook swords, yes? Sword catcher? All right, one more, yes? For punching, to catch? Oh, okay. All right, no, I'm actually going to go on now. Some people think this is a sword catcher. Some people think this is to hold your lamp so you can fight at night. All right, do any of you really want burning oil splashing all over your body in the middle of a fight? You're sick. You're very, very sick. What this little thing is a belt hook. You wear it on your belt, here, and with this on your belt, you just slide your sword through. You now have everything you need to go out for a night on the town. Because we always got to dress up with your best sword and buckler when you're going to go out. How many of you have heard the term swashbuckler? What is a swashbuckler? Can anybody tell me what a swashbuckler is? Swashbuckler, like, yes, a pirate. A swashbuckler is a pirate. But the term swashbuckler, the swashbuckler term actually comes from England in the 1500s. You guys have a basketball team, right? All right? And you would go to play basketball against other teams, right? Other schools. So you go to show that your team, you've got a good school. You're good to go. Sword fighting was the same way. I got the best school there is, and I'm going to prove it. Instead of playing a game, they would have a sword fight. So they need to let other sword fighters know that, hey, I'm here, let's play. What they would do as they were walking through London is they'd make noise with their sword and their buckler. It's called swashing your buckler. And so the people living in London would talk about those young punks. You guys ever hear that? Young thugs, those swashbucklers. That's where it comes from. Sword fighters looking for a fight. You'll notice with this sword, it's shorter than the hand and a half sword, so that means I can cut with it, but I can also thrust with the point. Yes? Oh. So, you can do both cuts as well as thrusts with this sword. So this was a civilian weapon, not a military weapon like the hand and a half sword. We're going to have a little sword fight for you again. You ready? Yeah. Remember what side you're cheering for. Remember what side you're choosing for. He's going to be fighting sword and buckler. All right, away. So, he's going to fight sword and buckler, so I'll fight sword and dagger. Stephen.
Nice.
You all right? You almost got me.
I couldn't get the buckler one time. Well done.
In fact, how many of you have heard the term to pummel someone? What is a pummel? What does it mean? To tackle him, yes? To hit him. To pummel somebody into submission. This back part of the sword right here, this is called a pummel. And it comes from your sword. That's exactly it. As somebody comes in to attack, Eric, can you just come in for a moment? As somebody comes in to attack, I'm going to step this way and pummel them. Now there's much cheaper. So, and if you're lucky, you might even see some. So this is the side sword. This was a great civilian weapon. This was very popular in England. Yes? A lot of times they fought to kill, but even though they were fighting to kill, there was a gentleman that wrote a book in 1588, I believe. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was talking about people fighting with this in London. He says they'd get together in a certain part of London. More often than not, they were scared more than hurt, and more hurt than killed. So what that means, Erlen, can you just come in for a moment? Yeah, thank us. So what that means, we face off, don't move. We face off, and all of a sudden my sword goes whoosh, right past his head. And no, that's too close for me. I'm going home. I'm taking my sword and I'm going home. So that would happen a lot. This was really popular in England. And then the Italians came over. Did you know that there's an Italian martial art? Did you know that there's a Spanish martial art? Spanish sword fighting, no less. The Italians came over and they brought a rapier. The rapier is like this. This is the one that the Three Musketeers used and Zorro used. Why does it have a what? This? Oh, that's not a spring. What this is when we use these, we actually fight to completion. What that means is we try to stab each other. We like each other. So they flex. This one, look at the difference in the swords. So this one, wow, you got a whole fan club here.
Steel-toed boots, gotta love them.
So the rapiers that we practice with this one, we use these to train for this one that does not bend. So what we're going to do is we are going to show you some of the different styles. Like I said, there was Spanish, there was Italian, there was also English, and then a little bit later on, there was French as well. In the Spanish school, they would stand upright with their swords straight out. They were very haughty. You dare to attack me, you peasant? The Italians love to fight. They would go on guard low with their point up, aimed up towards their opponent's face, And they were just itching for that fight. Come on, let's play, let's play. The English would go on guard. They looked at these two. Well, Spanish is straight up. Italian, that front leg is exposed. So I'm going to pull it back and I'm going to sit like this. And I'm going to wait for you to come to me. And you can see, stay on guard. You can see the difference in the body style. Come forward just a little bit. You can see the difference in the body style of how we're going to fight. So you'll see a lot of different styles using the same weapon. Now look at this sword. What do you think it's best used for? Swift attacks, thrusting, stabbing. We only have 7 minutes left, so we're going to show you just a little rapier fight.
No, not me, it's Derek and Steven. These two are brothers, so they tend to fight a little harder than most. And the more noise you make, the better they're going to fight.
No, we're not done.
No, we're going to go single rapier. Okay. Then we've just used rapier and dagger. We're using both. We're using our dagger to defend ourselves, our sword somewhat, but you didn't always have a dagger. So now we're going to fight single rapier. So it comes down to this is your offense and this is your defense. You all right? Ah, good hit. Good hit. Yeah, but who's alive? Hey look, a new sword. There's a little bit of your rapier and dagger. You see how it was all thrusting? So, we're going to go ahead and close it here. I want to say again, thank you for watching us. I teach sword fighting, what you saw in San Martin, and also in San